Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, depending on where you are joining us from. My name is Greg Cobrel. I am the Director of Business Development here at Herzum. Joining me today is Adam Betson. Hello, Adam. How you doing?
Hi, Greg. Hi, everyone.
Our agenda for today, we're going to talk about tidying things up. So project management and things that go in with that are tied to project management. Those topics relating from Confluence to Jira to modernizing your workflows, future-proofing your tools. We're going to get into a bit of a demo that Russ will be doing. I see that Russ has joined us, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So accelerate your team productivity. The first part we're going to talk about is connecting people and knowledge. And what I want to do before I get to this next slide is, think about your Confluence instance and get an image of that, what you think that looks like in your mind, right? And for me, being a little bit more old school, when I think about things being structured and organized in Confluence, I think about really structured files. Things are labeled, things are alphabetical. If you were sitting in kind of the early part of the webinar, we talked about different ways that people organize things, and it may not always make sense to you how it's been organized, but I think about this is what a really solid Confluence instance would look like in my mind, right? And I think sometimes the reality is it probably looks more like this, right? And so as you start to look at this, you're like, how am I ever going to find anything in all this clutter? And where do I start? So part of what we're going to talk about initially is starting to tidy up that Confluence instance. And so as we start to talk about tidying up your Confluence instance, these are some different areas that we really try to focus on to start to assist with that process, right? So as we move into the next piece, which is enable smarter decision making, and again, kind of get that image of what Jira should look like, right? So we had that image of what we thought Confluence looked like, and maybe what it does look like. So kind of get that image again of how Jira should be working and what that piece looks like. And this is kind of the image, right? We have our Kanban boards, our Post-it notes, and kind of old school, right? And you may have a million more different areas of in your workflows, but this is kind of what we think about. And then of course, sometimes I think this is the reality as we talk to people, right? There's so many different things going on, and maybe it's not structured properly, and so it creates a little bit of chaos. So now we start to talk about your Jira tidy up, and again, these things don't all need to happen in one fell swoop. It could be more of an agile approach, right? It doesn't need to be a waterfall approach to cleaning things up. So the next piece we're going to get into is how do you modernize your workflows, and we won't spend a lot of time on this, but really automation becomes a large part of it. And according to Atlassian, 76% of admins said that automations for Jira saved them more than 6 hours per month. Depending on how many admins you have in your organization, and it's not only the admins that are saving time, it's the teams. And we've talked about this in the past, where we might have a number of, if you have 500 developers and you can save each of them 10 minutes a day, there's a significant amount of time that's saved because of the automations. The last piece is really future-proof your tools. And the nice thing about Atlassian and the cloud is that they're constantly providing updates, features and benefits. Just one of the things that we're seeing a lot of use with is Microsoft Teams and Confluence, Slack and Jira Software, right? Most organizations are using one or both of these tools in conjunction with their Atlassian tools. One of the things we're seeing too, again, extensibility for, some of these are only cloud-based, whereas others are better in cloud. And this is some of the integrations that are out there. And it could be anywhere from, we talked about, we have Zoom, we have Zoho, we have, Box. So there's a number of different integrations that are available that help with the efficiency and effectiveness of your Jira instance. And so we'll talk a little more about that as well.
All right. And so kind of very quickly, we talked about a search, and we talked about kind of working a little bit, smarter in Confluence, kind of understanding how the structure works and everything. And so the one thing that usually that we talk about, right? Keep using the search, right? That AI addition is coming, and it'll definitely improve how you interact with the system, right? It'll help you find things better, especially if you are new to the company, right? You may have a general question. It'll go and scope it out for you. It's not necessarily by keyword, but also by context, and it'll understand what you're trying to do. So that, knowing that that's coming is very comforting. The other thing is I want to remind everybody that when you're searching Confluence or any other tools, you're not just searching the Confluence. So you're actually going to be searching across the variety of different tools that are connected to your organization. And so you can do it, for Confluence, for Jira, Bitbucket, Atlas, Trello, and Compass. And so that definitely kind of helps bring the context. If you're looking for a particular page, right, you'll have the opportunity to look at items in Jira that's related to that, and so on and so forth. So that definitely helps. In terms of kind of organizing the spaces, right? So we remember when you're creating a space, Atlassian gives you a variety of different templates, and you can start out with a software project, and they give you kind of a built out template for that. If you're trying to do something for project management, kind of the same thing. Different types of teams. You got for legal, for sales, for operations, and so on. And so these templates vary between themselves. And then the other thing is, once you create the space, the templates that the Confluence is going to suggest you use is going to be more relevant to the type of a team that you're trying to run. And so keep in mind, we used to have 4 templates. So I think it was like a team project, a software project, and a blank project, and that was it. But now you kind of have the variety, and it's built out, and it gives you a little bit more a structure and kind of guide you towards a better future in Confluence, better consumption of information. As an example, this kind of gives you an overview of a IT operation space that can possibly feed as a knowledge base right into the Jira Service Management. And so having the main page organized, so you can kind of see, right? You have the search that you can start typing in, and it's going to be searching on a very limited context, meaning you can just limit it to this one space, or you can expand it out to multiple spaces. And then just having an organization in terms of the topics. You've got an ability to split it out by alphabet. You show up, you show off your kind of major resources at the top, and then having the recently updated to kind of keep everybody in sync at what's going on. And so don't forget, a lot of times folks just start piling in the pages. You want to continue building this out, right? You want to have a structure to your pages, right? So a lot of times we say go ahead and treat these top level pages as kind of like a folder, and you can keep building out the child pages. And so Atlassian in the cloud made it very convenient. You hover over the page, and you can actually create a child page right there. And so if you are already one level down, you can still create a child page. And so you can keep going with that until it makes sense. I've seen and Greg, you and I were on the call. We've seen a company that had about 7 or 8 levels deep, which that stuff makes it hard to find things, especially if you're not using search, where you're kind of trying to browse through the tree. And so it's definitely use the child-parent relationship where it makes sense, and keep it relevant and useful. The pages themselves, let's say if we do want to come up with the page, Atlassian changed up a little bit how the templates come up and look. And so there is a ton of different templates that's available, right? And then you can select a template from a space. You can go and find another space that maybe has a template that you want to use. And so kind of overall, excuse me, it gives you an ability to come up with the, templates that being used the most. You can favorite them, and so start out with the templates. If I remember correctly, this has been circulated for some time back. There's an absolutely huge a website by Atlassian that has a ton of different templates that you can grab and utilize within your instance. And so we can share that URL with everybody. And so, going through those, and if you can't find it, so how many they have? About 131 overall templates in this instance. And so if you need to go beyond that, there's definitely plenty of resources out there that will allow you to have or bring in other templates. In terms of, and this is something that Greg and I talked about yesterday, very interesting way of looking at things, and actually a better way of working. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a link to this page, and the link, and we'll go find, let's say, an incident runbook. That doesn't matter what it is, and we'll hit publish. So the way that the Atlassian now allows you to work with links is a little bit different. Before, what do? We go find a link on the page that we need to go look at, we'll click on it, and whatever happens, happens. Nowadays, you can actually hover over, and it'll give you kind of a brief introduction of what that need to look like, right? So what is that? And it gives you like a little bit of a preview. And then you can say, okay, show me that in the full screen view. And so you're still on the same page that you were on before, but now you're looking at another page kind of in the same context. So if I just wanted to briefly look at it, I don't need to go to this page. I can just pull it up in the full screen view, then hit cancel. I'm still back without losing context. And actually, the very cool thing is kind of having the context and keeping the page that you want and tag. You can hit the excuse me. You can hit the link in the combination with the button, open up a new tab, right? And so that will kind of keep the both tabs open, and you'll be able to kind of switch back and forth and still not lose the context. If you have a need and you have a repetitive page that needs to be created, you can create an actual template with the within Confluence and use that literally in this screen. And so it'll come up under a custom tag here, and you'll be able to choose your template to continue using. And so I absolutely encourage. It's fairly straightforward to do. It takes a little bit of time, so I'm not going to get into that on the demo, but definitely look that up, and then you'll be able to create your own templates, and that'll come up as the part of the templates that Confluence offers up to you. So very neat. I think it might be a good time to switch over to Jira a little bit. We've got a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. Obviously, I want to keep remind everybody, right? Having when you have a backlog, use the backlog as intended, right? We're trying to kind of boost your ability to manage a project more efficiently. Remember that you still have the versions here, right? You can this is available, and it's something that folks usually forget to use, and they try to go different ways to try to find it and have and add this information. And thinking specifically, to add a version, like seriously, all you have to do is drag and drop an issue on a version, and all of a sudden the issue that you picked gets a version, and so it gets tagged with it automatically. Same thing with the epics panel. If you have an epic in your, I'm going to create one. So we got an epic. kind of the same thing, literally drag and drop your issue onto the Epic, and just like that, it will get tagged up. And so kind of think about, working with the tool more efficiently. Try to utilize as many of the features as possible. The other thing is, a lot of times folks forget about is reporting. There is a ton of reporting that's available in the cloud version, more so than on the server. My data might be slightly out of order, but just kind of recap. You have the burn down charts, you have sprint reports, you can calculate the velocity charts for your team, kind of going from sprint to sprint. That's all out of the box. You have the reports around DevOps, the cycle time report, understanding kind of how much time it takes to ship an issue, how often you deploy. So all of that information resides in Jira, given you have to have the integration with the SCM tool, but it's all available. It's all automatically wired up for you as long as the integration persists. And then, kind of going back over with the issue analysis, there's a wide variety of different reports around any of the statistics that you have with the issues. The other thing that a lot of folks forget is when you start looking at the service management projects, this is not just the reports that are out there that's out of the box, which is quite a bit. You can create your own reports on a statistic that you may want to capture. And so if you have a custom statistic that you want to kind of report on, you definitely can. And you can create a new report to showcase and keep track of that particular statistic. And so definitely helpful. Remember that Jira kind of uses JSM projects as these little tiny cubes, and you can kind of shuffle that information around and kind of look at it from a different angle. In terms of the cleanup, our usual go-to, and especially nowadays, if we go back to kind of the talk about issues and so on, Greg, if you remember, we touched on the migrations and kind of the wave of migration that's going on now. Not that the server is slated to go away. This is kind of where we start. As soon as we start looking at the instances that they either were migrated or we migrated afterwards, you start to look at the cleanup, because of some of the things. A lot of times you have folks working in a cloud instance, and then they have also the server instance they want to bring over to the cloud. Not everybody starts out as a fresh instance, and so we start browsing, and just like that, right there, you came up with a field approver, and so that you got to start looking at, okay, do I have another field that that is out of the box in the cloud instance, and can we reuse that, and so on. And this page here, it kind of gives you a nice context. You have a lot of information that you can use in terms of the cleanup. For example, we've got this approvers migrated field. If it's used in none of the projects, what's the point of having the field around, right? And kind of the same thing, some of these fields, a lot of the ones that come out of the box with Jira, so you kind of may have to keep those. But stuff that is not necessarily, if it's a custom field that's not being utilized, there's no reason to keep it. And we usually say, go ahead and, if you don't use it, get rid of it. There's absolutely no reason to have it. If you decide to have it later on, definitely can. But if it's been empty and nobody's using it, what's the point? Then I had an example. Sometimes you'll have a field that, let's say, location and then locations, right? And so, one admin created one field, one admin created the other field, and they're not they mean the same thing, but both of them are not needed. And so you need to figure out a way if you can populate from one to the other and get rid of the duplicate field. It helps to keep the instance nice and tidy, so that if an admin leaves and the next administrator comes in, he doesn't walk into the situation where he's got thousands of the custom fields and things that he needs to clean up and so on. And you can see, right? Remember I talked about having fields in the trash. If you're going to delete a field, it'll end up here. If you decide to bring it back at some point, you can do that and have that information back to where it was in the appropriate places with the appropriate values, if there was any. And this kind of goes back to everything else that that you have in Jira. You got to look through the field configurations. You got to look through different screens. Are they being used in anywhere? A lot of times fields are just sitting there and then not being used at all. Kind of same thing with the workflows. Are they being part of the project, or is it just an active workflow that is not being used? And so a lot of times we say, you got an active workflow, get rid of it. It's there. There's absolutely no reason to have it. If you had it, especially in your inactive workflows for a long period of time, clearly nobody's using it. Get rid of it. It's one item less that you need to keep track of. And so overall, kind of in terms of having different, we talked about users, Greg, and I wanted to kind of touch base on what that looks like for folks out there that use the internal SSO systems like Azure DevOps or Okta and so on. Make sure that you pick one system where you're going to manage the users. In a large organizations, obviously, the choice is clear. A lot of times, it's mandated that users are being used or managed in the Active Directory and so on, or Okta. And so, having that choice made for you, totally fine choice. It's totally valid and makes sense. Just kind of remember that you can use the Azure AD and Okta for both either authentication and authorization, or you can rely on setting up Jira to handle the authorization on the tools end. So you could get authorized through the Okta and Azure AD, and at the same time you can keep authorization in the Jira and Confluence. There's a kind of a lot of setup that kind of goes in, some technical details, but definitely kind of keeping in mind that you can have the split a split responsibility in different tools definitely helps. The other thing that I was going to bring up, and it's available to folks that use Premium and Enterprise. You have an ability to kind of see. Let me see if we can find a good example of this. The Atlassian Analytics, they allow you to kind of bring the data together and start showing you a different matrix based on the information that you bring in. And so, kind of remembering that you have an ability to see the analytics and be able to report on the data that comes in, and being able to filter, it definitely helps and gives you a broader ability to report on things than if you were just doing the reports in Jira. The other thing is, and I started doing this, and it might be taking a long time. Oh, we got the Confluence as well. So not only that you can, get the information out for Jira, but you can also have information out there for Confluence. So you can report on, change history. You can report on different different metrics within the Confluence, how many page views, how useful the page is. And so with all of that ready to go out of the box from Atlassian, you'll be able to use that data to kind of understand what needs to be cleaned up, what needs to be tidied up, what needs to be reorganized, and so on and so forth.
And really kind of the way that we approach things, and if you're looking for some assistance with cleaning things up in your instance and increasing your productivity, definitely reach out to us. This is an area of our expertise. We can also help you save money on licenses. So if you are purchasing licenses direct through Atlassian, or haven't purchased licenses yet, you're just thinking about Atlassian as an opportunity, let us know. But when it comes to the cleanup, we kind of take the approach of, let's talk about, what does the cleanup look like? What are those best practices? You can start small, set realistic expectations, making sure that we understand what the goal is when we do the cleanup. As Russ talked about, really kind of focusing on that monthly almost meeting to talk about, hey, here's the piece we're going to work on this month. So it doesn't have to happen all today or overnight. And then, once you start to do that cleanup, starting to realize the potential of seeing how those automations can increase the effectiveness and the efficiencies that the teams really start to utilize. And then also, what we see a lot of times is customers they don't have a dedicated admin. And so they're looking for someone to help them with that. And that's an area that Herzum can assist with as well, that we have, both full-time and part-time admin support that we can provide, as needed. So if it's an area of interest, let us know.